Chapter 5, Jessica's Story.
Federation Year 24-20. Planetary Enforcement Agency, morning briefing. Cobb, the final member of the PEA to enter the briefing room, receives jeers from his colleagues as he takes the last seat at the back, fending off various remarks about his tardiness. The Planetary Enforcement Agency attracts professionals from both civilian enforcement and special forces, making for an interesting mix of personalities. The room then quietens down as the mission briefing captain enters, looking toward the assembled teams.
"Good morning, ladies. Oh, and gentlemen,"
Captain Anderson says, smiling at Jessica.
"I keep forgetting. Maybe not so gentle, but certainly the only real man I consider among you grunts."
Captain Anderson adds. This is received with a mixture of laughter and heckles.
"Okay, quiet down. For those of you with the shiny new subdermal skin, as I said before, these skins are not ballistic armor. You are not bulletproof, and for that matter, you'd best avoid most thrown projectiles. Not that I imagine you will be attacked with spears anytime soon. Now to the main item on the agenda. Most important information has come to light that a very high-ranking representative of the Horizon Syndicate is arriving for a meeting. As you know, the Horizon Syndicate is responsible for about 80% of all drug production on Mars. We don't care what the meeting is all about. We just need to know who is behind the export of these drugs. So this is our chance to arrest a high-level member of the Horizon Syndicate. We know the main players, but we don't know how the network operates beyond Mars and who is behind this. All we do know is that they must be very influential. We will be continuing to stake out the Galpoli-owned nightclub. We know that he's the regional boss of the Syndicate in New Cassini and maybe on Mars itself. And our sources tell us that the high-level meeting will happen there one evening within the next few days. We will have 3 teams, 2 teams in surveillance assault craft outside, and 1 team inside. If our target arrives, we wait. We do not intercept in the club. We will watch and record to get evidence, and will extract when they're away from the club and civilian population."
Anderson pauses, as this part of the brief is received with a mix of reactions. He waits for the murmurs to calm down as he turns to the holographic projector. A holographic projection of a well-dressed man wearing sunglasses appears.
"Targets of interest and those also to be careful around. This is Galpoli, always well-dressed and always wearing sunglasses, even if it's dark,"
Anderson says, and then clicks a button. The projection changes to a beautiful brunette with long, perfect hair and a butterfly tattoo on her upper right shoulder.
"This is Muna, beautiful but deceptively deadly. She is not Galpoli's girlfriend, but his bodyguard. She uses seduction to get close to her enemies, and then employs her expert knowledge of human anatomy to inflict serious harm. Her favorite weapon is a butterfly knife of some kind."
Anderson clicks again for the next image. The projection changes, this time displaying a large, very tall man, well-dressed and wearing an ornate gold septum piercing through his nose.
"This is Vern. He's the bouncer and not very nice. Ex-professional powerlifter, and also an expert at jiu-jitsu. Now works for Galpoli. Do not get into hand-to-hand with this guy. He is very dangerous,"
Anderson says, emphasizing his words. The projector changes once more, this time showing a young male in his 20s with spiky red hair and wearing black leather.
"And lastly, this is Michi. He's the head of the street dealers. He's the one that you see the first time if you are a nobody. He also helps run the dealers in the area, also very dangerous, and normally hangs about near the club. You are to avoid this man at all costs. Do not arrest him. Abs and Brim will be inside. Decker, Spencer, Coops, Bennett, and Fingers will be outside in Observation 1. Call sign Alpha, stationed 100 feet overlooking the club's front. Lewis, Cobb, Spanner, Silent Joe, and Specs will be in Observation 2. Call sign Beta, stationed 100 feet above the club's back entrance. These assault crafts can descend swiftly and deploy both teams rapidly if needed. Fingers and Specs will be overseeing comms and technical support, and will remain in their respective vehicles. Keep it by the numbers, and all will be good. Deviate from official Planetary Enforcement Agency procedures, and if you survive, I'll have your balls, if you have them or not. Okay, people, that's it. Briefing over. Jessica and Brim, a moment of your time, please."
Anderson calls out as everyone else files out of the room.
"I did not like that you are withholding the name of your witness, but I now understand the reason. Before the briefing, I had a rather disturbing conversation with my boss. He tells me that the feds are pulling the plug on our little investigation, and I am to hand over all relevant information to them.
Anderson says. Jessica begins to object, but Anderson continues.
I argued that we were close to a big break and just needed a little more time. So, you have 12 hours. Unless you have something concrete, we will be officially shut down. Dismissed.
New Cassini, Galpoli's nightclub, 2100 hours. The club is situated in the New Cassini Dance and Nightclub District area, but is mainly frequented by high rollers wanting privacy and discretion. Other than the expensive drinks, loud music, and a multitude of sexual deviation, the main reason they visit is the drugs on tap. The assault teams arrive in the early evening under cover of darkness. The stealth capabilities of the craft are good but not perfect during daylight hours. The two crafts contain a whole spectrum of eavesdropping scanners and optical monitoring devices. Each craft can stay in position for several days without landing or refueling. Jessica and Brim arrive via a black limo with the restricted identification registration exclusive to the super rich. With this, no questions are asked upon arrival. Instead, they're given free access, the perfect cover for a wealthy couple looking for the best pleasure and service at such an exclusive club. Inside, the nightclub expresses itself with glass glitter and bare flesh. Pure sexuality oozes from everywhere, mixing in with the explosive sounds beating throughout. Giving a generous tip, Jessica and Brim are led to a private booth. The booth is fitted with an adjustable sound nullification system that terminates the music's sound immediately upon entering, and has a perfect view of the club's main dance floor, entrance, and a private area near the back.
So why is it that Brim and Abs always get to have fun, drinks, and music while us grunts have to wait it out in this tin can?
Decker says as he loads his third weapon. This one is his favorite, as it can be easily hidden up his sleeve and has the same impact as a double-barreled shotgun at close range.
Because you're fug ugly and nobody likes you,
replies Spencer, sharpening and cleaning his knife for the fourth time. Almost everyone laughs in both crafts, including Decker, who already knew the answer. Silent Joe remains silent as always, his own weapons already clean, loaded and ready. Bennett starts to do more squats, as any inaction for more than 10 minutes makes him feel a bit antsy. Lewis continues to read his second romance novel, which everyone knows to ignore and not ask any questions about. The last time a new member of the team, now an ex-member of the team, asked him about his books, the mission had to be canceled due to the injuries the soldier sustained. Lewis was allowed to remain only due to his father's position within the military and that he's very good at his job. Cobb continues to work on his gear, attaching a new patch and improving his weapon loadout, ensuring that everything is ready and in its right place. Lastly, Coops and Spanner work on their breaching gear and explosives, talking from time to time as they check off the various items. Specs and Fingers, as always, continue to monitor the comms and data frequencies in the area, making sure nothing suspicious is missed and ensuring every scrap of data is recorded.
Break!
Spec says, and immediately, the comms chatter stops for the priority message.
A white limo with restricted registration has pulled up outside front entrance. 2 males exited the vehicle and entered the club. Running identification. Identification blocked. Okay, guys, we have a pair of spooks in play. I repeat, spooks in play.
Fingers says, sounding unnerved as he reports the last of his information. Spooks on the ground would typically signify government or military, as even the super rich can't have blocked identification. False or fake, but never blocked.
What the hell are spooks doing here? What is this shit?
Decker asks.
Check the official lines. See if there are any red flags up for this area.
Affirmative, checking now.
Specs replies. Both Jessica and Brim notice the 2 well-dressed men walk into the club. At around 6 foot, the first wears a smart white suit and has short hair with a scar down his left ear. He scans the main dance floor, staring at the female dancers and smiling broadly. Just behind him, the second man is around 5'5", has a slight build, wearing a gray suit and round-rimmed specs, and carries a small silver briefcase. These 2 are met by a third, the woman known by the PEA as Muna, an unusual choice as bodyguard to Galpoli. The the club's owner and manager. She also helps run the club and takes care of VIPs, along with other more delicate issues. Her stunning athletic beauty and perfect brunette hair allow her to seduce her prey. Not many can withstand her charms for long. After greeting the two, she turns and leads them both towards the private part of the club.
I'm not certain, but the guy in the white suit looks familiar,
says Jessica, talking into her drink as she plays the happy couple with Brim, his firm, muscular arms around her. Her ocular implant starts a scan.
Can't say I recognize him, but it looks like he's brought his accountant with him.
Brim says, giving Muna an appraising look.
Nice butterfly tattoo.
Brim adds, grinning, not paying any attention to the tattoo as Jessica pokes him in the ribs.
Keep your mind on the job, not her tight ass. And besides, that's how most of her victims end up as victims.
Jessica says as her ocular implant finishes its scan.
Yep, a pair of spooks. Identification blocked. Maybe dirty or some kind of sting. Best we observe for now.
Jessica says, activating her outward comms.
Hey, Specs, any news on our visitors or flags yet?
Negative. I'll keep you posted.
Roger that. Going back to receive only.
She replies, turning to Brim.
Let's go and dance. We can get a better view of the meeting from the floor.
Brim nods in agreement and stands up. Jessica and Brim arrive on the floor just as the two spooks and Muna enter the club's roped-off private section. For a moment, as they pass the curtain, they have a view beyond, where two other men can be seen. One of them is Galpoli, the club owner, and the other is the street punk with spiky red hair named Michi. The view is then blocked as the curtain falls back into place. Jessica takes out her lipstick and activates a microdrone before applying color to her lips and putting it back in her purse. The microdrone flies through a gap in the curtain and hides in a corner, the drone giving Jessica a good view of the private area. Although it's hard to spot, the drone has no stealth capabilities and has a very short range of control. This reduces any electronic transmissions, thereby diminishing the chance of being detected via other means. Galpoli stands as Muna enters, leading the two men closely behind her. He seems nervous as he greets his visitors. They certainly give the impression of being high-ranking Horizon Syndicate members.
Come in, Mr. Sims. Having such important guests, always a pleasure, although I don't believe I've met your companion before. Muna, please send in one of our girls. I'm sure our friends here would like a drink after their long journey.
Galpoli says, inviting his guest to sit.
We would, but first things first, we need to discuss why we are here.
The man in the white suit says, moving over to Galpoli. He glances at Michi as he passes his companion at his side, and as they both arrive at the table, the man carrying the case places it down, turns it around to face Galpoli, and then steps back beside his companion.
Now, to the reason for our presence here, it has come to my attention that someone in your organization has been very silly.
Mr. Sims pauses as he looks around the room. His silent companion looks around also, and then walks across the room to stand with Muna. Both Michi and Muna are watching, their expressions slowly changing from interest to confusion to concern.
I have it on good authority that the PEA has obtained some rather damning evidence on your little operation. Well, when I say yours, I actually mean mine. This concerns me, and if I hadn't already pulled a few strings to get this place red flagged as an area of interest, you would most likely have already been raided by the PEA.
Sims explains. He pauses again, and again his silent partner moves, this time stopping next to Michi. Galpoli is now starting to look concerned, and Muna appears visibly tense.
Now, my information comes with a photo of the issue at hand.
Sims nods toward the case.
You may open it now.
Galpoli leans closer and clicks open the case. Staring down in shock, he recognizes the picture immediately. Both Muna and Michi are distracted and crane their necks to see, but the case lid blocks their view. Galpoli looks across to Michi, just as the silent companion taps two rings upon his forefingers together, and a burning, white-hot wire appears between his hands. With deft speed, the companion sidesteps behind Michi and flips the white-hot wire over his head. He then leans back, stepping again past Michi, and with the merest hiss, the hot wire slices through flesh and bone, and Michi's head slides off and hits the floor with a wet thud, followed shortly after by his lifeless body. Both Galpoli and Muna look at each other, aghast at what has just happened. Then they look toward the silent companion, who taps his forefinger rings together again, making the hot wire vanish.
Oh, and my companion here is called Edge. Now that the unpleasantness of my visit is over, you may call me Ray. I really could do with that drink now.
Ray Sims smiles at the shock caused by Edge's actions. An excellent start to the meeting, he thinks to himself.
Break. Flag red. I repeat, flag red. This location is flagged for keep clear by the Federal Investigation Unit. We are officially out of bounds. All teams abort.
Fingers says over the comms.
No shucking way, red flag or not. Brim and I have just witnessed a murder. I'm proceeding to arrest. Will require backup.
Jessica replies, removing her high heels.
We can't interfere. We no longer have jurisdiction. Besides, Michi was just a dirtbag.
We have both witnessed a murder by an unknown federal officer. Regardless of jurisdiction or how low the scumbag was, it's still murder.
Jessica replies, sounding angrier. She opens her purse and brings out a small pistol.
Make up your mind, guys. Entering in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jessica says over the comms, counting down quickly, then pushes in through the curtain. Muna looks startled as she sees Jessica and Brim enter, holding guns and wearing official PEA badges.
Planetary Enforcement Agency, nobody move. By my authority, you are all under arrest for the various crimes of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, drug trafficking, extortion, and blackmail.
Jessica calls out, pointing her gun towards Edge. Muna backs off toward Galpoli, but Edge takes a step toward Jessica and Brim.
Well, I admire your nerve, but I think you're rather out of your depth, not to mention without backup.
Ray Sims says, looking at the two officers with an arrogant expression. A boom is then heard from the club's front, followed by smashing glass and more shouts of, "PEA, stand where you are." The room suddenly bursts into motion as the sounds of screams and shouts come from the main club. Edge rushes towards Jessica. Ray, Galpoli, and Muna run for the back of the room as Brim moves to block Edge.
Get after them,
Brim says as he intercepts Edge. Jessica, not pausing for any longer than she needs, rushes past them to pursue Ray, Galpoli, and Muna. Edge, unable to get to his original target, settles for Brim. Brim raises his pistol. But before he can get off a shot, Edge flicks one end of his wire toward him. The wire detaches and flicks out fast, wrapping around Brim's gun, and with a sharp backward tug, the weapon drops in two. Brim is already tossing it to one side as he charges into Edge. Not expecting a straight-out charge, Edge is momentarily winded but recovers quickly and twists away from the blow, flicking the wire again, this time wrapping around Brim's wrist and pulling hard to take his hand. Brim cries out in pain as the wire burns into his flesh, but only as deep as his subdermal skin allows, which protects him from the worst of the heat. He twists his wrist around to grab hold of the wire, his flesh making a dreadful hissing sound as his skin is scraped away. Edge is surprised by this and falters momentarily, giving Brim a temporary respite, which he takes full advantage of by pulling Edge off balance toward Brim's other fist. This slams perfectly into the man's face, shattering his nose and causing Edge to stagger backwards with blood pouring down his face as Decker and Spencer rush in shouting. Meanwhile, Jessica runs to the back of the room, where a small exit, previously covered with a curtain, is now partially open. Passing through, Jessica hears the signature sound of a butterfly knife and dodges back. Muna's knife still manages to cause a slash down Jessica's cheek, drawing blood, and she is not out of danger yet as Muna presses her attack. Jessica has fought many times and many opponents, but none is as quick as Muna. Jessica barely blocks the first and manages to counter the second, landing a solid blow. This causes Muna to stagger back, allowing Jessica to make eye contact. Jessica recognizes the shock in her eyes. Muna slashes out again, and once more. Jessica blocks and counters. However, this time, Muna's blade is knocked from her hand, and it skitters across the floor.
I don't care about Galpoli, I just want Sims.
Jessica says, and for a second, Muna seemed to somehow shimmer in the light, and then, the next moment, Muna backs off.
He's heading for the roof. But you don't realize the shit you have just started.
Muna replies, pointing down the passageway. Then she turns and runs in the opposite direction. Going into a run, Jessica, taking this right path, follows the passageway, hoping that this is where the spook known as Ray Sims ran. After a short sprint, Jessica re-enters the club. With the music for some reason still on and no obvious route, Jessica can only track her prey by the path of mayhem that Ray Sims left behind. Half-kicked in doors, shoved or knocked down patrons, left shouting their anger. Ray's route now leads upward towards the roof. Jessica follows, taking the stairs 2 at a time, finally reaching the roof. Up here, the club's music is much quieter, replaced by the noise of the wind. Being cautious now, Jessica slows down to a crawl, sensing that her prey is close. Then she hears shouting.
I need an emergency evac at my location now, and I mean now.
Ray Sims calls out over his radio. Jessica continues to make her way along the side of the wall. Reaching the edge, she peers around the corner, only to have a chunk of wall shatter in her face, and she dives back away from the sudden shot.
You are one hell of a persistent bitch. I'll enjoy destroying your career. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?
Ray Sims shouts, realizing that all he needs to do is stall her long enough for his ride to arrive. Jessica sends her remote camera drone up and over the roof as Ray continues to shout. She pinpoints his position near the corner of the roof. He's holding some kind of high-velocity pistol banned by some governments. Picking up a brick, Jessica throws it as far as she can, diagonally away from her across the roof. As she throws, she begins her move, diving into a roll. The fragment lands and shatters into pieces as a roof segment evaporates from Ray's gun. Ray, realizing, just in time, sweeps his aim back towards Jessica. Jessica is already halfway through her roll toward Ray when he shoots again. With more luck than skill, the first shot strikes her in the left shoulder, knocking her off her feet, creating a neat hole in the front but shattering her shoulder blade as she is blasted back. The nano implants reduce the pain and allow the user to continue when any other average person is out for the count. The second shot misses her narrowly, and Jessica brings her own gun up in mid-fall and fires once as she continues her backward trajectory. Controlling her fall, she manages to land on her upper back, leaving a wet patch of blood on the floor. Then, performing a body flip to bring herself back to her feet again, she springs forward and away, crouching low with her gun and aiming for another shot. Her first shot misses, but causes Ray to duck and move toward the roof edge. Ray returns fire to where Jessica was just moments ago, removing a segment of the roof. Jessica's second shot hits him in the right upper leg, causing him to fall to one knee just as the sound of a hover vehicle comes into view, its lights blazing down on the roof. The force of the wind increases as the vehicle gets closer.
You are not going anywhere, Ray. We have a lot of questions for you.
Jessica shouts out, still trying to get nearer to him, but knowing she hasn't got long as she feels her life's blood running down her back.
Stupid dumb bitch. You don't know what you have gotten yourself into. If you had a clue who my father was, you would have left me well alone.
Ray shouts, fury in his eyes, and he fires another shot, this one hitting Abs in the stomach, sending her backwards and dropping her to her knees. The sound of the hover gets even closer.
Well, it looks like my ride is here. Too bad I don't have much time, or I could have made this much more painful for you.
Back on his feet, Ray limps toward where Jessica has fallen, raising his gun for one final shot and aiming at her head.
Too bad. I would have enjoyed dragging this out.
Ray Sims says again as a sudden noise causes Ray to look up as one of the PEA assault craft swoops in to intercept Ray's hover vehicle, blocking its landing vector, instigating it to decelerate hard, the thrust causing the roof's dust and loose debris to fly up in a furious gust, forcing Ray to stagger back to where his hover vehicle was attempting to land. Ray frantically stares up, searching for his ride as the downdraft from the PEA craft forces him closer to the edge. Jessica lifts her gun whilst Ray is distracted and now perilously close to the roof's edge, and with the last of her fast-dwindling strength, she squeezes off one last shot, hitting Ray squarely in the chest and sending him the rest of the way over the side and out of sight. Jessica breathes a sigh of relief as the hurricane of noise increases and footsteps rush to her side, and the world around her fades into quiet oblivion. Planetary Enforcement Medical Facility. The Federal Space Regional Commander walks into the Planetary Enforcement Agency's medical facility's central area with a long line of doctors, military aides, and security personnel following closely behind.
"So where's my hero?"
The commander booms out in a manner that would suggest this is his usual tone, causing half the medical staff to stop and look around. One of the senior nurses points down the corridor, and the commander moves off in pursuit. Arriving like his very own miniature tornado, the commander looks over the assembled team standing at attention against the walls as he rushes past.
"So where is she?"
Good morning, Commander. It's wonderful to see you visit this facility. If it's Jessica you are referring to, she has only just come out of surgery,"
a doctor says, emerging from a side room.
"Well, Doctor, I'm here to help. Only the best for our hero. I have a special medical transport coming to pick her up and give her the best treatment at my disposal. I'm personally going to ensure that she gets everything that she deserves."
The commander replies enthusiastically.
"Although she is recovering well, we had to do a lot of reconstructive surgeries on that young lady. I can't possibly release her so soon,"
protests the doctor. Dismissively, the commander pushes past, his security preventing the doctor from following him into the room. The commander walks over to Jessica's bed as his medical team starts prepping for Jessica's immediate removal. Jessica opens her eyes to the sudden activity inside her room.
"Hello, Jessica. Or should I call you Abs? Or maybe by your rank, Lieutenant? Or maybe I should refer to you as the stupid bitch that killed my son,"
Commander Sims says calmly, but his features plainly show his hatred for her. Jessica blinks, stunned and struggling to comprehend. Then, as the drugs take effect, her world slowly begins to melt away. She hears just the last of the commander's words before she slips into unconsciousness.
"Your team thinks I'm taking you to a top-notch facility. Well, in a way I am, but not the kind they are hoping for. It's a shame I can't remove your tech, but sadly, time is limited. We won't meet again."
In Dreamtime, Jessica is fed days of verbal and psychological abuse, hammering home the fate in store for her. Commander Sims explains that the facility is within the gravitational field of a black hole. She won't see the team ever again, and no one will ever know what happened to her. As far as anyone else will know, she'll be lost during a Black Ops mission gone wrong, all files destroyed, and her records of service changed to reflect nothing of her past deeds. Strangely knowing all this, Jessica still felt oddly optimistic and refreshed. The pod docks with a clunk, and the door hisses open. Jessica stands up from her chair. She takes a tentative step into the facility and stops on seeing a middle-aged man standing there.
"Welcome to Facility Zero. My name is Alistair Brooks. We have a lot to discuss, Jessica."
End of Chapter 5.